Last time we tore apart the engine block. Now we're doing the cylinder head. First, we remove the 5 10mm bolts holding on the oil control valve housing. Before taking off the housing, use a 24mm wrench to unscrew the oil pressure switch. Now, use a 14mm for the oil plug and take out the front and side oil filters. Use a 10mm socket in order to remove the 2 lift bolts. With the lift bolts gone, we can remove the rocker shafts. How you do this depends on how lucky you are. Some can slide right out while others need some convincing. I used a wooden rod to tap out the second one since it was a little more stubborn. Now we just lift out the rockers with the shafts out of the way. On the 2ZZ, the valve assembly consists of 5 parts: the valve spring, the spring retainer, the keeper, and the shim. The shim has a specific thickness to control the clearance between the camshaft and the rocker and can just be pulled off. The keeper sits in a groove and is kept in place by the force of the spring. The spring needs to be compressed in order to remove the keepers, then everything else slides right off. Here you can see what each individual component actually looks like when it's assembled. Looking at the cylinder head, we can see that these valve springs are difficult to get to, let alone compress them enough to free the keepers. Generally, people buy special tools for this, or outsource it to a shop with the right equipment. I'm too cheap for either of those options, so I took some measurements, designed a special tool on my computer, and used my 3D printer to make it. So this is what the final iteration looked like. It's pretty much a cylinder that sits on the spring and lets me use a clamp with a rag taped to the bottom to compress the spring. I've seen people use a similar setup where they buy a cheap socket and cut out a notch on the side. The general idea is that you're using a big C clamp to compress the valve spring and then use a magnet to pick up the little keepers to free everything up. Here you can see that the special tool is sitting on the valve spring while the bottom part of the clamp is holding the valve in place. While the spring is compressed, we use the magnet to get the keepers, and after that the spring and retainer can be removed. Now finally we can just slide the valve out of the cylinder head. Now that's just one done. On this particular motor there's 7 more that need to be removed. Now we remove the oil control valve on the front of the head by removing 2 10mm bolts. There's one more oil control valve on the other end, held on by one 10mm bolt. All that's left is to remove the valve stem seals where each valve was. This can be done by using a needle nose pliers and just pulling them off. Be careful not to damage them if you plan on reusing any. With everything stripped down, I sent my parts over to a machine shop to have some work done. In the meantime, we can set some goals and plan out our build. But until then, thanks for watching and take care.